Hey guys, welcome to another layout. This one is a monochromatic layout and I'm using purples. So these particular photos, when they printed, because of the lighting that particular day, they actually printed with almost like a purple hue about them, and the photos are really cute. So I decided I'm still going to scrap them. So I printed them, I put the money into them, so you know what? I'm going to do it. Now, I skipped over the fussy cutting of those flowers. I showed you the ones that I was going to use, and I'm using the beautiful P13 paper, and it's called Time to Relax. I'm not sure if it's still available. I have had it in my collection now for easily 2 years. Easily. I love it. It's gorgeous, and I'm a hoarder of it. I have to be truthful. I'm a hoarder. Now, those frames up the top there, that was one frame, and you saw, just like I'm doing here with the flowers, they're more of a brown, but I'm just going over them with some distress ink. I use Seedless Preserves, and I went over the top of them, and it makes them a shade of purple because it's got the darker underneath it. So if you're looking to do a monochromatic layout and you think, well, I don't really have much purple, well, I bet you've got some white flowers. If you look through your collections, you probably have some white flowers you could fussy cut, or maybe some pink flowers you could fussy cut that you really like. Pull out your distress ink. Now, your distress ink versus your oxide in this situation, if you use an oxide, it's going to completely cover up the entire image because it's got pigment ink in it, right? And it's creamier and it's more dense. It's more opaque, right? But the distress ink, and this is the bonus to having the ink, you can go over the top of these images as you can see them there. And sorry, I'm just fussy cutting those and I was slightly out of camera shot. When you go over it with the distress ink, it gives it the hue of the color, but you can still see the image. So it's perfect. Now, these are my little tiny brushes that I absolutely love. And I'm using one of my bigger brushes as well because I wanted to go around and give it a border. I wanted it to be something obviously purple, so because it's monochromatic, but I wanted to do something slightly different. So I pulled out a couple of distress inks. Now, I only have in most of my distress ink line, I bought the minis. I didn't buy the big ink pads. There is a very big difference between the two though. So the distress ink larger pad has 5 times the amount of ink in it to the mini. So even though the mini is cheaper, you really don't get as much bang for buck. But the reason I went with the minis is because 1 was storage, and 2, I wasn't sure if I was going to like the distress inks as much as maybe the oxides. I did buy the inks first, and I have to say, whilst they're great to have, I always lean towards my oxides more. I always do. So if I was going to suggest for someone to buy a particular supply, I would run with Distress Oxide first. That's just me. But I have these in my stash, so guess what? I am using them today. So as you can see, I'm using this floral stencil. This stencil, again, I'm not sure if it's still available. It's one from KAISERKRAFT, and you could use any stencil you have in your stash. Now, the reason I'm doing 2 different colors. I'm using Seedless Preserves and I'm using Wilted Violet to go around the outside edge. Spoiler alert, if you keep watching, I actually go around again and line up the stencil and add a little bit of Villainous Potion in there. And whilst it looks good right now, as soon as I add that Villainous Potion, which is super dark, it really makes it pop. Like, it was the bit that it needed. It was fantastic. I absolutely love how it looks once I love it like this. And to be honest, this was just it was relaxing doing this border. I didn't measure all the way around. I didn't overly care if it was perfectly square or anything, because I figured I probably could have made the border, if I had have made it maybe half an inch wider, I wouldn't have done what I did in the middle. I would have changed it up. However, it is what it is. This is what I did, and I love how it turns out in the end. So when it comes to this collection, I have picked through it a fair bit, and I'm down to, when it comes to the purples, and that's the reason I bought this collection, the purples, P13 is the most stunning paper. It was my go-to before I even started YouTube and doing content creating. Once I decided to do that, P13 papers are not the cheapest to get your hands on, and to create 6 videos a week using P13 papers, mate, that is a bank killer. It really is. It's really expensive, and it wouldn't be viable for me to continue to do it at the level that I'm doing it, like with 6 videos a week. So I do hoard my P13 papers. I did buy this in the 12x12 and the 6x6. I also purchased the ephemera, and I think there was tags or tags or banners or something. But now this is where it changes. Have a look at the difference once I add the tiniest amount of Villainous Potion. Like, it's not much. Can you see how much more those flowers just pop by having the third shade of purple? That's all it is. And this is the difference between, and I say this all the time, between, wow, I like your layout, to, oh, wow, how'd you do that? That's the difference. If you just take one more step, just sit back for a second and go, I wonder what would happen if I stepped one more step forward and maybe add a third purple in there. I wonder if that would make it pop more, or if it's going to be like a dud and you're going to turn the page over and start again. Because that's essentially what you would do. If I had gone in here with the Villainous Potion and it was too much, all I would have done was flip it over and do it again. It would not be the end of the world. It's only ink. It's only paper. It's not the end of the world. We're not rocket scientists. So you can see here what I did. So this purple piece is an offcut from a previous layout. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted, because the stenciling around the outside isn't perfectly lined up. If I had to run some washi tape or something down there, it would have given me a nice crisp border, but I didn't really want it to look like that. So I ended up I should have maybe traced around this purple piece perhaps. That might have given me more of what I needed around the edges, but it's okay. This is how I end up doing it instead, and I really like how it looks. So hindsight, maybe measure your offcut and bring your stenciling in a little bit more. It would be less fiddly. But that being said, I cut this into quarters, and it's going to be sort of a block sort of look to it. So I'm liking where this is going. And then I figured, you know what? There's more in here, and I was flicking through the 6x6 book. The difference between the 6x6 paper pad and the 12x12. Basically, when you buy the two different ones, the 12x12, everything's larger. So if you look at the flowers I've cut out, they're larger. If you go to the exact same cutout in the 6x6, it's a lot smaller. So to be completely honest, that's why I buy the two. Because sometimes you need something small and busy that can maybe, you can use it in different ways compared to the giant flowers. So as you can see, the border is popping. Now I've put this on, it's just popping. I love it. I absolutely love how this looks. So even if your offcut is not the right size, don't panic. you can always do something like this. And then you're going to have that little bit of white peeking through. Like, it's not going to be anything ridiculous, but it's just enough to break up the pattern. And I did rough up the edges. The P13 papers, if you buy anything along the lines of maybe 49th and Market, they both have that nice, thick, solid papers in their collection. Well, I shouldn't call them, they're more like cardstock than papers. That's where I'm going to go with it. It's really quite thick, so it's very sturdy, and it will tolerate being distressed to within an inch of its life. It really does. It's really, really good. So these are the pieces that I fussy cut out of one of the 12 by 12 sheets of paper. Some of them I have altered the colour from a brown bone beige to a purple. Now, there is, right in the very centre of these white flowers, there is a yellow stamen. Now, is that completely monochromatic? No. Could I have changed the colour of those flowers a little bit to make them more purple? I could have. But I guess you guys will forgive me perhaps for doing it this way. I felt like you needed that break. And because white's acceptable, it's just the yellow in the middle. I could have probably could have used one of my little tiny mini brushes, and I could have just changed the colour of the centre of the flower, and then it would have been a true purple monochromatic layout. But, you know. Here I'm doing my little trick with my offcuts, because this is all I had left of this one piece of purple that I cut up. So I ended up just trimming it and adding the distress edge around the photos. And I'm just raising them up with some cards, with some craft foam. Now, that craft foam doesn't give me a massive bit of height. It's only about 2 mil. That's all it is. So I'm raising that piece up, and then I'm just going ahead and basically putting these florals together in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. That's pretty much what I'm doing. So, and I'm just gluing everything down. I'm just committing, because I've had a little bit of a play before. I know these all go together. It's just a little bit of playing. Don't ever be afraid if you can't tuck something in. Just cut it off like I did just then. So I did trim off some of the white because, you know, it's not true to it, I suppose. But I like to try my best when I set myself a challenge. If it's going to be a challenge for a bit monochromatic or whatever, I like to really, really try and stick to it. So, but you let me know below. Do you reckon it's okay that those centerpieces are still yellow, or do you think I should have gone over them with some ink or maybe some watercolor pencils or something like that? Because this cardstock, it does hold up with that really well. Like, I have added some watercolor pencils to this cardstock before, and it totally works. It really holds the water quite well. So yeah, so this is me just adding some florals. The reason I'm adding florals, one, obviously because they're purple and they work with the layout, but Jen is my flower power baby. She loves if you ask her what the one thing she loves the most, other than gymnastics, she would tell you flowers and petunias. Petunias are her favorite thing in the whole world, and she just loves it when we fill our garden. We've got used to be a wine barrel out the front of our house, and it was a half wine barrel, and it was full of seasonal flowers. So your annuals, your petunias, and marigolds, and what else do I have in there? Coxcombs. There was a heap of different flowers there was a bit of baby's breath in there. There was just some really cute, and anyway, the wine barrel has degraded over time. I have since bought another flower pot, and the problem we have is we don't have a trailer or anything. So to get rid of the old wine barrel, it's being a bit of a process because it's falling apart. And yeah, so Jen can't wait for me to finally go out and sort that out and get some more flowers out there, because that's her favourite. Now this is my title. It's super tiny. It's a sticker off the P13 sticker sheet because it's written in purple, and I figured that would match in perfectly. And it worked. So I think, what do I call it? It's the little things, and that's so true. When it comes to my family, it's the little things that they like. It's, it's petunias. It's hilarious. I was actually having I'm going to sidetrack for a second here. I just do make a little bit of a cluster at the top there. I was thinking about sticking these. They were brown, but again, I ran a bit of the Seedless preserves over it, and it gave them more of a purple hue. So they end up working for me. Now, a little bit of funny. When Taylor was younger, because she's got Asperger's, she used to hate bees, ants, mainly bees and ants. They were her things that she just detested. So she became an inside child and a conversation. Now we have the other two. Angela has a fear of birds. You should see this child when there's a bird, she's never been swooped. It's just a thing. She absolutely hates birds. Now, she hates birds and she hates cane toads. I think we all hate cane toads, to be frank. But look, they don't scare me the way they scare the kids. Jen hates... What does she hate? Wasps, moths, and believe it or not, moths freak her out. And she's clearly not a fan of anything flying outside. Anyway, I'm waffling. Here's the close-up for you. Have a look at those flowers around the outside edge. See the Villainous potion on there as well. I think it works really well. I did add some liquid pearls there in Blackberry at the end. I will have everything linked below, including my socials, if you want to jump over to the Facebook group. Have a look at what's over there. That's where I have all the close-up photos, and you can zoom right in on them. And yeah, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, I'd love to have you do that as well. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.